Hello Tennos, Zelp here. So, the channel hit 2k subs not too long ago and it feels like we're entering a new sort of chapter. But before we carry on with our usual videos on mechanics of Warframe, let's take a quick look back at the playlist and see if there's any significant changes that would render my video outdated. So in other words, if you're wondering if you should still watch the Warframe mechanic playlist I have for you guys here because you're worried that the information there might be outdated, the answer is, as of this point, you can definitely still rely on them because most of the core mechanics did not change, and any noticeable changes will be addressed in this video. If you're new here, this is your lucky day because you'll be able to see what my channel is about, so let's get started. So the first video that I like to talk about, not because there's any changes, but because I still see bigger YouTubers than me getting this wrong, and they're the ones that could really reach out to more people. And since I know a few Warframe YouTubers much bigger than myself also watches my video, some kind enough to even mention me,
build was better. Okay, I tested it out way before, and if you look at my
determinedly, we're trying really hard to get a good build, but I just couldn't decide on something. And then Zelp made this huge video on it anyway, so it made me really happy.
Big shout out to ZandyPants and MemeSage for that. So this is to make sure at least the people that is subscribed to me or at least follow my videos do not make the common mistakes on how armor modifiers work, especially if you're doing tutorials or guide videos on Warframe. So over here we have a simple spreadsheet to basically show you what I mean. If you want more details, I'm gonna put the older video in the description and also a card somewhere on the screen. So let's take the Heavy Gunner as an example. It has a base level of 8, armor of 500. If you set the current level at 20, it should have about 693 armor, and because of this 693 armor, it's gonna have a damage reduction of 69.8%. Okay, and this damage reduction along with health type modifiers and armor modifiers is the reason why the damage you do is not the same as the damage you see on your weapon. Okay, these are the factors that is sort of manipulating the damage and changing it. So okay, so for example, a Heavy Gunner has the fire armor, and behind that fire armor he also has the clone flesh. A lot of people mistaken the fact that health modifiers and armor modifiers works the same way, but they actually are completely different. So let me give you an example. Let's say the Heavy Gunner for some weird reason does not have any armor on. Maybe you're running with 4 corrosive projection or something like that. So it has no armor right now and it has clone flesh. So if you take a look over here, if it is clone flesh, it has an extra 75% damage if you use viral. Okay, so let's take a scenario. Let's say you're not doing viral damage, you're doing just normal damage that does not play a significant role. That means there's no modifiers that will affect the clone flash. So let's say your damage output is 1000. Okay, and what will happen to the health is you will do exactly 1000 damage. Okay, because there's no armor, there's no damage reduction, so you're gonna do 1000 damage exactly. But if it's clone flash and that 1000 damage that you do is a viral damage now, so because it's a viral damage, it has a 75% extra, so you're gonna do, instead of 1000, you're gonna do 1750 damage exactly. Okay, so now let's say it has armor. So when it has armor, it's different. First, you're gonna have the damage reduction. Okay, so if you do 1000 damage that has no as in the damage type has nothing to do with any modifiers between the armor and health. So what will happen is that 1000 damage will undergo the damage reduction, which is minus this damage, and then you're gonna do about 300 damage. Okay, so far so good. Now if that 1000 damage is a corrosive damage, so the misconception by most people is that, so this is the damage that you usually do. If it's a corrosive, you do an extra 75%, so therefore you do about 528, which is wrong. Okay, the actual mechanics and how it works is that current armor, which is about 693, will reduce by 75%. That means if it's corrosive, the armor has its effectiveness being reduced by 75%. Okay, so there will be a new armor. So from this, if you reduce this amount by 75%, you're gonna get a new armor rating of only 173. With this 173, you'll find a new damage reduction, which is only 36.6%. Okay, so instead of almost 70%, now it went down to 36.6%. And from that damage reduction, you calculate the damage that you will be doing, and it's going to be 633. So I want you to take a look at the difference. Okay, this is the misconception that people think. From here you increase by 75%, but in reality the damage actually increased more than that. In fact, it increased more than 100%. Now this is not a fixed value, because depending on the armor rating and stuff like that, this the difference can be a lot. So I'm going to show you another example. Assuming that we're dealing with a heavy gunner at level 100. So at level 100, the current armor now is 7,332, and it has a damage reduction of 96%, which is a lot. Okay, so if you were to do 1000 damage that is not corrosive, it has no significant damage type, you're gonna do only about 40 damage per hit. Okay, so the misconception again, if you are using corrosive, then it'll bump this up by 75%, and then you do 68%, about 68 damage, and that is not correct. In fact, what will happen is that old armor will have a efficiency of a reduction in 75%. Oh my god, I'm tripping with words. So it's not going to be as good. It's going to reduce by 75%, and you're going to get the new armor rating, which is only 1,833, which is still a lot. And then the new damage reduction is actually only about 85.9%. So instead of 96%, is 85.9%, and the damage that you'll be doing is actually 140. So if you compare this one and this one, is an increment of 75%. This one and this one is an increment of more than 300%. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's the misconception, and I just want to clear it up. For my condition overload video, the main changes are that gas procs no longer gives 2 heads-up display of gas and toxin, therefore only providing one condition overload stack shown as toxin instead of 2 stacks. And before update 21, impact does not have a heads-up display and does not contribute to condition overload, but now it does. So in one of the videos, we were looking for the strongest companion, and we sort of came to the conclusion that it was the Helios and its Deconstructor. The whole reason behind that was because not many people know this, the Deconstructor is actually doing stealth damage, and back then gas and stealth was crazy. I actually did a video on that as well, and we sort of calculated the damage and also proved the bug and also how it sort of functioned, and it was actually dealing 512 times more damage. So you can imagine that it was nuking everything. You can bring in a heavy gunner at level 100 plus and it will still kill it in a number of hits. So yeah, but the question now is the Helios and its Deconstructor still the best? In terms of damage, I would say definitely. Okay, so the whole reason is that the weapon, the Deconstructor, is still dealing stealth damage, and if you mod it towards aiming for dealing like slash damage, it actually is pretty decent. It's not as good as it used to be with the gas and stealth bug, but is actually still pretty good. So I'm gonna show you with a level 145 heavy gunner. Now just the thought of having your companion killing a level 145 heavy gunner is actually really amazing, but we're gonna see. So first of all, you'll notice that I have corrosive modded. So this means that the more it hits, the more it procs, the more weight, the more damage the base damage is going to do. The next thing is you realize there is also cold procs. Now since I'm modding it towards sort of using slash to kill the heavy gunner, the cold proc will actually prolong the slash, causing it to do more ticks than it usually does. Okay, so that is the few main things. And another one really important for the Deconstructor is condition overload. Okay, so that is a main factor in doing such high damage. So the reason why is because the Deconstructor uses melee mods, and therefore it can use condition overload, and if you proc enough, you're gonna do insane amount of damage. Now the problem with the Helios is that there is weaknesses, and I remember sharing this in a different video, but I'm just gonna go through this really quickly. So let's say you have 4 enemies, right? So first thing is you realize that you have to go relatively close before it starts attacking. Next thing you realize is that it is not attacking right now. The reason why is because it actually has a delay almost as long as its reload time when changing enemies, when changing targets. Okay, so the moment it kills one, it sort of pauses for almost 3 seconds and then it continues to shoot. Now sometimes, even though it's locked on one target, it also pauses, and that is because of the Deconstructor reloading. Okay, so it has 6 magazines sort of, which is like this or glaives, and then the moment it finishes throwing them, it will start to reload, and that reload time is about 3 seconds. Okay, so you can imagine that if, let's say, you're bombarded with enemies, even though they are low level enemies, the moment the Deconstructor, the moment the Helios kill one enemy, it pauses for like 3 seconds, so, and then kill the other one and pause again for 3 seconds, and then somewhere in between is going to pause for 6 seconds because it also has to reload. So it's very, very, I don't know how to say it. It's just, it's not as good as if those flaws is not there. So there's 2 flaws. First is the pauses when it changes target. The second flaw is that it requires you to be in a really near range. So what I'm going to show you is a bug. Okay, this bug happened really long time ago, almost the beginning of the year, and it's where you could equip the Deconstructor with other Sentinels. Okay, so over here I have the Diriga and the Deconstructor. Just so you know, it's a bug that has been fixed, so if I were to remove this Deconstructor, I can never put it back on, so I just really want to keep this. I don't really use it, it's really just for bragging purposes. So over here I have the Diriga, and the Diriga is actually really good because it has one of the highest range of the Sentinels. I think it is the highest, if I'm not mistaken. It's about 70 meters. So let's just do this again. So immediately when I summon the butchers, you can see it starting to attack all the way at the end of the map. Okay, so that is the first thing. The first flaw has been solved. It could start shooting enemies from really long distances. The second thing is that you realize it could change target instantly, and the only reason it needs to stop is because of the Deconstructor reloading. So 2 things was fixed in this scenario. So I guess you could say that this is the strongest Sentinel, but then again, this is a bug Sentinel. So a legit Sentinel that you could use right now, I would say damage wise, is still definitely the Helios. So the next video I'm going to talk about is about the critical lesson video. So I have a video talking about everything you need to know about critical, how to calculate the damage, and yada yada. And nothing pretty much has changed. All the mechanics is still the same, the values is still the same. The only difference is that the colors, they color coded it different. So from 0 to 100%, you'll get a yellow crit, and then from 100 to 200% you get an orange crit, and from 200% and above you get a red crit, and that's pretty much it. So if you want to learn more about criticals, again, I will put the link at the description, and there should be a card somewhere. So in the video of the Saryn that I made very recently, where we talk about all of the abilities, how the damage is being done, and blah blah blah, I also gave you guys 3 ideas on the builds. So one of which is actually on sustaining the spore. So I told you guys to use a weapon that is not AoE, and then also use radiation, because the enemies can actually pop each other's spore and sort of make it self-sustaining. But that is only good if you want to keep the spore running and also keep the enemies alive, which is normally not the case. Okay, most of the case when you enter a mission, you want to kill the enemies as fast as you can, and that is where I think the third method is actually better, and you can still actually use that third method to also keep the spores running. So this is the idea that I have in my mind. What you need is you need to make sure that you could sort of segregate the enemies into like sort of 3 different sectors. So let's say you're standing over here, you have the green box, and there is the red one, which is the enemies closest to you, and the yellow one would be the enemies furthest from you. So if you pop a spore on the red one and it spreads to the middle class one but does not reach to the yellow one, so this two will have majority of the spores, and then you kill the red one, and then the orange one will become the new red one, and then there will be a new yellow one, and then the orange one will get the spores when you kill the red one, the new red one. You get what I mean? So as long as the waves keeps coming systematically, such that not all of the enemies are with spore at the same time, you could still maintain the spore growth without recasting and kill enemy at the same time. So on the most recent video on Warframe mechanic, we talk about length and height in Warframe, and someone just reminded me something that I completely overlooked down in the comments, which is snipers. If you were to zoom, you could actually see the distance with an accuracy of 0.0, and this is actually really good. So wherever you point to, you get a fairly good estimate of the distance, and that distance is actually from your head or eye level, the one that we discussed in the video. So what does this mean? This means that you no longer actually need a skill anymore. You do not need frost, you do not need that red line and stuff like that. What you need is really a little bit of math. All you need is Pythagoras theorem. Okay, so by looking straight and then looking and pointing at the top of something and the bottom of something, you could actually find the total height of that particular building or whatever it is. So let me explain with some visuals, and yeah I know it's pain, shut up. So let's say this is Bob and you want to know Bob's height. So you are the Tenno, and with your sniper you could find out the distance of A, C, and D. With A and C you could find B with this formula. With C and D you could find E with this formula, and then you take B plus E and you get Bob's height. So for the last part, I'm going to talk about Mag and her Magnetize. I'm sort of losing my voice right now, so in case you hear something really weird coming out of me, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I did a video really recently on Mag's Magnetize, and over there is like pretty much full detail. You could learn how to calculate the tick damage from Magnetize. You could learn how to calculate the explosion damage. We also show if you have like shards, how those damage is being calculated as well. So everything seemed to be proven, everything seemed to be done, it's like solved. And then something really confusing sort of happened. I saw Life of Rio's video, and over there he talked about things like laser beam supercharging the magnetized bubble. He talked about the pox supercharging the magnetized bubble. He talked about throwing 3 pox into the magnetized bubble and it will explode even though the enemy that you selected did not die. And everything there just made no sense to me until I realized something. He is playing in console, and because of that, whatever I experience on the PC version might be different. Okay, so it's not up to me to say that he's wrong or anything like that. He might be experiencing a bug, and I actually believe that that is the case because apparently a long time ago, now I did not actually get to experience this, but enough people told me about it and I believe them, is that a long time ago things like the Quanta or any beam weapon can actually supercharge the magnetized bubble, and when they explode it does insane amount of damage. So I actually really want to experience it, but I don't have the console because even though it's a bug, even though it got fixed in the PC version and it might get fixed in the console version. Even though it's a bug, I kind of want to know why it bugged, because by knowing that is actually valuable information, because from that you can actually possibly find different or other kinds of bugs. So first of all, if you're watching this video and you're playing on a console, could you verify if the console version is having that bug? And if it is, can you take some pictures for me or something? There is something else that he mentioned at the end of his video which doesn't make sense to me. He said something, but then again it could be a console thing again. So yeah, he said something about the magnetized damage depending on the enemy's health. If you've seen my video, you know why I feel this way. Okay, so let's go on to the next topic. He also mentioned that using mag to remove armor is not really that good, it's not really that useful, and I don't know, I have mixed feelings about this. So instead of figuring this out myself, I'm gonna show you some tips and tricks, and then after that you tell me in the comments what you think. Okay, debate with me, whatever. So over here I have 8 heavy gunners at level 145. I'm gonna summon them. I'm gonna go all the way there. Okay, and with 160 power strength. Now all this thing has been calculated, and I actually featured this in a different video. So I need to do 2 crushes. That's 1, that is 2, and 1 polarize to remove all of the armor on the heavy gunner. And what's interesting about this is that it is permanently removed, and a lot of people do not know about this trick, is that if you could remove the enemy's armor with polarize after crush, it stays permanently removed. Okay, so you could see more about that in the actual video, where I also proved that the crush has a cap on the armor removed, and how to prove the cap, and also basically if you have 160 power strength, you'll reach that cap. Okay, so at this point you can kill them easily even with a bow. So what makes them tough is really just the armor. Without the armor, it's just not much health inside, it's just really easy. So for high level contents, mag is in this situation where you need a very strong team, because mag can't really kill them. You can remove armor from them, but you can't really kill them, and then mag can't really tank them as well. So it needs to be protected. At the same time, your allies need to be the one killing. So yeah, it's in a really weird situation, but as a debuffer, I guess removing armor, I'm not sure if it's worth it to you for high level content, because I don't usually play that far. But for mid-range content, I feel like mag is actually really good. So by the way, just let me show you the build that I was using. This is a efficiency build, so you can see maxed out efficiency. I have 170 power strength. You actually don't need that much. If you have 160, that's good enough. And okay, so in other words, if you take a look at the abilities, you're spending like 25 energy for crush and polarize for 19 energy. Okay, for most of all the enemies, a crush and a polarize is enough to remove all their armors, but heavy gunners has the most armor, 500 base armor, and at level 145 it's insane amount. So that is why I do 2 crushes and 1 polarize. Okay, so let me show you a different kind of build, which is this build. Okay, and this build is a range build. Again, you can see that I try to reach the strength of 160. So here I have 169. Actually, if I remove blind rage by 1 rank, it will be perfect. It will be 60, and also I have a little bit more efficiency. So my efficiency is not maxed out. I can use this same build to remove the level 145 heavy gunner's armor with 2 crush and 1 polarize, but that's not the point. Okay, the whole point of this build is to cover max range. So how about if I say I could use my skill to remove armor throughout this entire map? Is that good enough? If I stand in the middle and I can remove armor, to the entire map. Is that good enough for you? So let's take a look. I'm gonna summon 20 heavy gunners, and I'm gonna get them at level 55. I think level 55 is rather high level, because I think meat level is around level 30. 55 is relatively high. Okay, so I have enemies here, I have enemies behind this pillar, and also enemies behind this pillar. So I'm gonna do a crush, okay, followed by a polarize. And immediately you see all their armor gone. Some even died from that because of the damage done is so much. Okay, so their health is like really low. You know, you can just like kill them in one hit. If you come over here, you can see this part of the enemies, and they are all also really low health. I think one died as well. And then if you come over here, it's the same thing. So how about that? Like, is that worth looking into? So yeah, let me know what are your thoughts. So yeah, 2 points here, I guess. Low level contents with mag for removing armor, at the same time dealing pretty good damage, I guess. And also CC, don't forget CC. Another thing is that you could, the trick that I taught you to permanently remove armor, and I think not a lot of Warframe can do that. So even Frost's Avalanche has a duration. So yeah, think about it and let me know in the comments. And I guess that is all for this video. Have a great day, Thanos. Bye bye. Oh wait, don't forget to like and subscribe and all those sweet stuff, because you're gonna want to do that.